This is Dedrick Dodge, two-time Super Bowl champion. You're listening to Matt and Dexter on The Grueling Truth.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the 49ers Weekly Show on the Grueling Truth Radio Network, brought to you by Gridiron Mo. Gridiron Mo is a new interactive football app that lets you call what you think an offense or defense will do in a live NFL game and compete against others across the country. Check it out at gridironmo.com or thegruelingtruth.net. I'm your host for the 49er Weekly Show, Matt Andruscavage, and I'd like to welcome in my co-host, former 49ers running back, Dexter Carter. How's it going tonight?
Hey, my friend. Hey, it's going awesome, man. Great to be back with you again after a bye week, man. It seems like it's been forever.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks. Definitely good to be back.
Yeah. No doubt.
So there's a lot of things happening. The Niners are getting ready to square off against the New Orleans Saints on Sunday. And, obviously there's been a lot of injuries. Aaron Lynch hurt his knee. Carlos Hyde is still recovering. There's a chance he could play. So there's still some injuries. And, it's hard to say at this point what we're going to expect to see. But I do know that we were talking before about Colin Kaepernick having a week off and a little bit more time in the offense, but it's definitely going to be somewhat of a mixed bag.
It is. There's definitely a lot of unknowns, and doing with Colin, having his second or third start. I think third start, but that's unknown. But it's unknown that I'm looking forward to anyway. Because I'm hoping, bye week and, the previous couple of games, we're going to his fourth week, starting. I'm really looking for some positive things, getting more acclimated to that offense and just back to starting again and throwing, like a pitcher, getting some throws in real live action, and then having this bye week. Hopefully he'll look a lot better and just look a lot more natural. I'm still hoping that he can have a turnaround and make a respectable performance, even if the game's not respectable or we don't win. But at least I'm hoping that that'll be a positive turnaround for the 49ers if he can kind of get back on track and we start seeing glimpses of the possibilities of him being close to what he was. Because we know another off season with him, gaining confidence, and the 49ers decide to keep him, gain that confidence, and have another summer with those receivers. Next year you never know what might happen. Hopefully it'll be rejuvenated, situation all around.
Yeah, I think with Kaepernick's time spent in the classroom, spent on the practice field, there are targets out there for him to throw to. I would expect Vance McDonald to be healthy this week with Garrett Selleck. That's two pretty good tight ends, good targets. Jeremy Curley at wide receiver, Torrey Smith, a good deep threat. And you kind of get the feeling that they know they have to do something to elevate this passing game. It's number 32nd in the league. They're getting like 162 yards of passing offense, which is just never going to get the job done in this league, which is a passing league. So they're going to be working on it. Hopefully Carlos Hyde plays, pair him up with Mike Davis and get some kind of a running game going. So the Saints don't have that good of a defense, but unfortunately they do have a pretty good offense, and our defense is not playing particularly well right now. So it's hard to say exactly what we're going to see, but I know that we're all hoping for a win on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Carlos Hyde, a game kind of situation, and it's kind of hard to have, one, a balanced attack, but two, mostly a passing game to be productive in it when the running game, isn't up to par, or at least you don't have your starting guy in. So, man, I would like to have great ratings. It won't be the World Series ratings, of course, which was a great World Series,
sure
but it looks like it's just going to be one of those things where, it's not going to be, it's not going to have a whole lot of eyes looking at it this weekend. But if I have the opportunity, I'm sure going to watch it.
Oh, definitely. As we kind of unpack this a little bit and look and see, not just this matchup, but what this is going to mean for the rest of the season. You get the feeling that, like we've talked before, you get the feeling that they're going to be doing a lot of talent evaluation. They're going to kind of see what they've got in some areas, and it's going to be kind of the last 8 games are going to be, well, what does will this Chip Kelly offense be viable for the future? And, what is this going to mean if this, turns out to be like a 2-14 season? So I kind of look at this as, all right, well, what are they going to do on the passing offense and the rushing offense to just kind of generate something to give management some kind of an idea that, hey, we're going to be moving in the right direction. We might not be getting a lot of wins right now, but this philosophy can indeed work. So I would think that they're going to do everything they can to still be successful and try to put players in a position to be successful so that they can make the roster next year and kind of build off of this. I just don't know. To me, it looks very much up in the air that this is even going to be a viable thing. I don't know how you feel about it.
But, what's interesting is, I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen in the front office, much less what was going to happen here nearing the trade deadline. A lot of people thought some certain things were going to happen since, right now it looks like the season, you don't want to throw the last 8 games or so away, but at the end of the day, if they go out and win 4 or 5 games, what kind of position are they going to in the draft, to draft the quality player that we need, such as the quarterback position. You keep moving, you'll stay in that position to, get that quarterback you think could possibly, excuse me, be that gem. Would love to look up in a 4th round and get a quarterback like Dallas did, but it's just so many unknowns. I mean, a lot of people thought, Torrey Smith should have been traded, now that he still got some type of value. But obviously that's gone by the wayside. And then there's injuries, across the board. And man, just being honest, I don't know if I want them to just reel off, 8 wins, because one, I just don't see the playoffs, in reach. And I really don't know the offense that, they're trying to run. Is it even viable with the talent that we have? We've talked about it once before, but man, it just seems like that offense that Kelly is known for would have been so perfect for what the 49ers once did, but that's just not now. That's just not who he is. That's not what 49ers, are right now. I'm kind of for a loss. I just think, sometimes you got to clean house and start over. And I think from a coaching perspective, it needs to be done. I don't know how viable a mid-season replacement would be. I don't think that will happen. I don't mid-season, but I don't even think it's going to happen next year. But they've got to do something to just create some kind of competitiveness within, not just the conference, but what is the NFC West?
The division, yeah.
Exactly, the division. They gotta create something just from a competitive perspective, because they got long to go, to catch, the leaders, from Seattle, Phoenix, Arizona, and I tell you, the Rams, really, if they can get that quarterback, I think they need to start their young quarterback, but that's another whole story for another day. But man, it's just, in my opinion, an overhaul needs to be done.
Yeah, it's
just
sure
a
does.
fact.
I think you're right, and I think right now what you just said and what I was trying to say as well, we're saying kind of the same thing in our own way. We're at a loss, and I think that is really where the fan base is right now and why there is so much dissent. Because what's so troubling for fans, and I talked to several of my friends who are just so upset, and I understand because I'm not happy either. But we went from being used to being in the NFC Championship game 3 years in a row with like 9 or 10 Pro Bowlers, just a loaded roster, competing for the chance to go to the Super Bowl or to win championships, that's what we do, right? We're 49er fans. We watch teams that win titles. We want to get back to that.
That's right.
And
absolutely.
And it's tough to go. We kind of just crawled out of the dark ages, and it really is tough to realize just a short time later it's back. And now it seems worse than ever. And so I think that's why so many fans, justifiably so, it's like, well, how do you explain any of this? We don't seem to have a vision. We don't seem to really have much of anything right now. And so I think that's why everybody just wants to blow the whole thing up and, remove Trent Baalke from GM, remove Chip Kelly from head coach, change quarterback. I think fans just want to see some kind of emotion from the front office that this is not acceptable and we're going to move forward with something else. But I don't know what they can really do right now. I don't know, does Trent Baalke's firing and Chip Kelly's firing, is that really going to be the answer? And that's what's really tough to know. I think fans just want to see something, but I don't know how a midseason firing with a coach and then you're just going to promote one of the coordinators, is that going to do anything different?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I don't think that's the answer, because before you can clean house, let the GM go, let the coach go, I think somehow, especially from a CEO, president perspective, you have got to have some type of idea of, identifying prospects. What GM out there that's available that you can go out and get that won't come into this messy situation, or a coach, you don't know what coach is available now, who's going to be available. But, I think about McKenzie, when he came over to the Raiders, from Green Bay,
yep.
He had some ugly years. And then all of a sudden, the people, guys from the scouting department start being put in place and they start identifying talent, that people don't see it now, but then all of a sudden, these draft choices start coming to fruition. And here they are, got Del Rio in, which, I didn't know how great he was going to be, with the years he had with the Jaguars, but right. At the end of the day, he found a great situation, got a great staff in, and these players started to develop, and develop quickly and early. And, so McKenzie, once again, great guy, put in the right position, had great experience at Green Bay, brought all of that over to the Raiders, and start putting it in place, creating his own, team, and it's working. And I think it was within 3 to 5 years he did that. So they identified him, from his years of work. Now, the 49ers need to be identifying somebody like that. And I'm sure there are some either, veteran guys like that or some understudies that are learning from great guys that can come in. And it may be taking a chance. It might be a no name to us, but in the business of football, they can find out who that is, who those young guys are, or guys who are understudies. They can find out who those guys are. So I think that's what's going to have to happen for them to start making a change, because it's going to be, it's not going to be a Harbaugh where he comes in and he goes to, 3 NFC championship games and a Super Bowl. It's not going to be that. So it's got to be developed over time, but the sooner they make that transition, I think the sooner they're going to get, this thing started. But what's interesting is, you always want to have something that can attract somebody. Jeff Fisher and them went to L.A., but they moved to L.A. I know it doesn't seem like a similar situation, but when I'm talking about what attracts them is, one, L.A.'s been wanting this for a long time. They've got a stadium coming. San Francisco already has all that in place. What a wonderful practice facility, great stadium, just had the Super Bowl. It's like, why aren't they winning? They got everything they need. So I just think, again, they've got to overhaul from, the front office to, to the coaching staff. And I don't see, and that's when you're going to start bringing in that talent, because you got to identify this talent. You got to have people who are smart football minds. It may be, minds that we have never heard of, but you know what? They know how to identify talent. So Jed isn't going anywhere, but he's got to start making some tough decisions.
No doubt about it. You brought up Reggie McKenzie. When Reggie McKenzie got to the Oakland, he didn't take long, and he was not considered a very good GM, and Raider fans were not happy with him. There was that clip of him sleeping at the draft at the combine, and the Raiders have been the laughing stock for quite a while. They haven't been in the playoffs since 2002, the year they went to the Super Bowl, and it's been some pretty dark years over there. But like you said, it just all of a sudden some pieces got in place, and now he looks like a good GM. And they made some really good draft choices. They've got a pretty good coaching staff in place, getting your teammate Ken Norton Jr. off of Seattle as the defensive coordinator to go with Jack Del Rio. They got their franchise quarterback and Derek Carr. And, all of a sudden, they got a team in place. But, we can't forget that they went through some serious dark years. And so
absolutely,
on our side, the popular move right now is they got Tom Gamble back. He was with the team. He was I think he was director of player personnel, and he was responsible for helping Trent Baalke build that Super Bowl roster. And then he went to Philly, kind of washed out there. I don't really know what happened, but he came back. And so right now the popular pick is fire Trent Baalke, promote Tom Gamble. I don't know if that'll fix it. I think I'd be willing to give it a shot because the guy seems to know how to evaluate talent. I think there is some talent on the roster, but with all the draft picks, and the more I've been looking at this, with all the draft picks that the 49ers have had over the last 4 years, there's really no reason they should have this little of talent. And that's on the GM. So there is merit to what all the fans are saying. But, it's just one of those things this year where I think the defense would be a lot better if it weren't for the injuries. I'd sure like to see those big defensive ends paired with Ian Williams at nose tackle. I'd love to, and with Navarro Bowman and Ray Armstrong behind him with Aaron Lynch on the outside. I think that'd be a good front seven, but it didn't work out. So it's like you just right now it's just a perfect storm of bad. And I think it may be time to just kind of blow a lot of it up and start over, but I don't know that you do it mid-season like we were talking about.
Again, mid-season, what at the point they're at right now, why can't they wait to the season? Nobody's going to want to come in at this point.
Right.
I just don't believe it. But getting back to McKenzie is the 49ers got so many resources. They've got to be looking at they've got to be looking at somebody who is like a McKenzie, who was behind the scenes making moves. Look at all that talent that Green Bay comprised. Yeah. Guys that I didn't even know, but they developed into great talent. So with the resources they've got, they got to make a concerted effort to identify those individuals within these organizations that are doing really well. When with GMs not going anywhere, let's see who they're grooming. Because when I look at the Chicago Cubs and I look at Phil Epstein and what he did prior to coming to Chicago, and he had a plan. Everybody criticized him and crucified him because things weren't turning around real quick. But he said, I've got a plan. Just trust me. And you know what? He started comprising this talent, and look what happened. Come to fruition last night. So, some of us that are diehard 49ers are crazy enough to believe that, we won a lot of Super Bowls, but you know what? We can still win some more. and it's going to come. But we just got to have our leadership make some bold, tough, but right decisions to move forward.
Most definitely. You bring up Theo Epstein. He didn't just rebuild Chicago in that 108-year drought. He also turned around the Red Sox. And, I mean, nobody thought the Sox would ever win a World Series. And
That's right.
And they were down 3-0 to the Yankees, and they came back and won. I mean, this is the same guy. So this stuff is possible. I mean, I guess this year kind of gave me hope. I mean, the Cleveland Cavaliers have never won a thing, and they won a World Championship. The Cubs, I never thought I'd see a Cubs World Series in my lifetime, ever.
And Kansas City last year.
Right, Kansas City. That had been 30 years since. I mean, they were on the bottom, and then even in football, the Saints. When I was growing up, it was the Aints.
No doubt.
No, I mean, things can turn around, and that is the one good thing about the way the league is structured. If you make some really good moves, you can get a few things in place very quickly, and you can have success. I mean, it happened for us 5 years ago. Everything just kind of fell into place, and they were that close to winning a Super Bowl. So hope is not completely lost, but like you said, Jed York and for the rest of the front office is going to have to start making some pretty bold moves at the end of this season. So I think we would agree that some things need to be done, but maybe ride the rest of the season out, evaluate what you got, and then just start figuring out what decisions need to be made.
Absolutely, Coach. Whenever, this season ends and you put really a whole season of evaluation in, you got people in place traveling the country, looking at this high school talent that you got to trust that, they're able to see in reality into the future, how a player, is going to develop body-wise, performance-wise. And so while these tough decisions have to be made, they still have to stay current with, okay, how can we still, comprise, some more talent with what we have? Because it still seems we got on paper some great talent if we can keep them healthy.
No doubt.
But you still got to have a GM that makes good decisions. You still got to have a coach, staff that, even when injuries happen, how can we adjust and still have a system that can be successful?
Unfortunately, you got to get everything to happen at almost the right time together. Coach, quarterback, GM.
Absolutely. And again, I don't know if Cap is the guy, but you got to have that guy. You got to have that quarterback. And I still say going forward, you got to find him. So, in the midst of all these things, that's why I said it may be good, that we don't, come out and win 8 straight. I think that would be so far-fetched to even happen. But regardless, we got to find that guy, and we got to find him quick.
No doubt about it. I mean, the way the schedule is looking, anyways. Even if some of these guys are healthy, it's gonna be tough to go into Arizona and win. It's gonna be tough to beat the Patriots. It's gonna be tough to, beat the Falcons in their building. I mean, there's a lot of tough games coming up. So, I'm just kind of looking at the rest of the season like a preseason, see who emerges, if anybody. And then we just got to hope that the front office can make some good decisions in the off season to start turning this thing around.
Right. That's all we can do is just hope and, come here and, talk 49 football every week and hopefully we have some positive things that we can discuss. I hate being pessimistic every single week, but, injuries don't help the situation, which we have our, which seems like, we've got our fair share. But right now I'm just interested in, can Cap keep developing, can, making advancements every week, and can Torrey Smith just get to, he should be dominating. I'm just being serious. He should be dominating.
Yeah,
so
no doubt about
hopefully
it.
they can continue to develop that chemistry. And early in the season, even when Torrey wasn't playing well, we had few other receivers were stepping up, playing well. Gabbert was getting them the ball, a little bit, then it just kind of faded. So, we got a decent 2 to 4 top receivers that got to go make it happen. But again, a lot of things, play into that. He calling, one, they changed quarterback. So,
yep.
Man, it's a lot of frustration going around. In a locker room, you try to be optimistic, regardless of what people are saying, regardless of what we see every week, regardless of how bad we're playing. You get the game plan, on a Monday, and you meet. You're optimistic on the approach, and you know what? We feel good about the game plan. Then we go out and we get slaughtered. But we're trained to be optimistic. So that locker room, who knows how it is here, in 2016. I'm sure they're going in optimistic with the game plan, but the game plans have been failing, based on loss of talent to injuries and just all these things that we see being thrown, into the pot with the 49ers. So they got to keep their heads up somehow. This is their job. It is their job, and they've got to do it.
Yeah, absolutely right. Injuries are part of the game. I mean, you know how it was. 94, Mark Logan went down at fullback, and all of a sudden William Floyd emerged. The draft pick just kind of jumped right in, and he never lost his job. The offensive line was in a lot of flux early in that season, and after the loss to Philly, it wasn't looking really good. But, you dig your heels in, you work through the injuries, and that's where the talent from the front office, the depth, that's where that kind of comes into play. And good teams fight through that, and that's where we got to get.
Yeah. And when it comes to player versus player, it becomes a mano win your individual battles, and at some point, regardless of the record, you got to find a way to dig deep and strain. And that one-on-one at receiver, you got to win that battle. A quick out, a quick hitch, a slant. Come on, you got to win those. I'm sorry, I don't care, what's going on, what has happened. You got to win those battles. Offensive linemen, regardless you're in the NFL, you've got to win your individual battles. And so at some point they got to dig deep in their gut and gut it out.
No question about it. So we'll just keep, like you said, hopefully we're going to see some positive things this Sunday. I'd love to see a win, but, on the other hand, losses aren't an extremely terrible thing at this point because of the draft. And, getting to where they ultimately want to get to, you're going to need some high talent coming out of college. So, it's just one of those things right now where, it's not, things aren't easy, but, we're faithful to the end. We love the team. And, we're going to keep talking about it, and we're just going to keep seeing what we can find positive and talk about the negative as it comes as well. But
yeah. And one last thing, the 49ers, from a competitive spirit perspective, we're talking about New England. Chicago just had a big win.
Yeah.
Atlanta, now Miami. Now they go to South Florida and lose. Now come on, now they can't let Miami beat them. But I just mentioned 3 prior games that there's still some great competitive games, and I don't think I mentioned the division games that we have. So if we were able to win them, they're big wins. But if we lost them, it wouldn't be a shot at this point where we're at.
No doubt about it. So we'll just keep plugging away, and ultimately, we're just going to hope for what we can. Hopefully, we can see some good things, and we'll definitely be back next week to talk about it more. So everyone, be sure to. Hopefully, you'll be able to watch the game on Sunday, and see some of the things that we were talking about, and we'll be back next week for another edition of the 49ers Weekly Show. So, you got any final thoughts?
No, just we kind of covered all immediate things, in this show. But nonetheless, the 49er faithful, they're always going to be faithful, maybe frustrated in the process, but nonetheless, I do know brighter days will come. It might not be this year, might be within, 1 to 3 years, but nonetheless, we're going to continue following the process and hope that the front office makes, Jed makes some, great decisions that will catapult this team, from a confidence perspective, to a talent perspective, to get back to that competitive edge, and first in the division. If you're competitive in this division, you're going to be all right. You're going to be competitive, to possibly winning, obviously a division and a conference championship and possibly another Super Bowl.
That's right. Yeah, and just remember, after that 2-14 season at 2004, 7 years later, that's when Jim Harbaugh came in and everything turned around. It can turn around that quickly, but things got to happen. So we'll just keep plugging away and see what happens. So be sure to check out thegruelingtruth.net for articles on the NFL, CFL, any other sports that you might like, whatever you like to read about. We got it all there at thegruelingtruth.net. Check out our Facebook page and also follow us on Twitter at gruelingtruth. And so for Dexter Carter, I'm Matt Andruscavage. You've been listening to the 49ers Weekly Show on the Grueling Truth Radio Network, where the legends speak.